Hi folks, so if you've been watching the channel for the past year or so, you'd have seen these little units come up every now and then in video. The Korg Volca range, I've used them quite extensively in a number of covers at this point. I have about 10 of them, 8 that I use regularly, 4 Volca FM, 2 Volca keys and 2 Volca bass. They're a perfect entry for somebody who wants to get into synthesizers. They're easy to use, packed with features, and they're cheap. This video is sponsored by PCBWay. No, come on, let me do it, come on! Anyway,
this is just ridiculous. I hate you!
PCBWay offers PCB manufacturing services, of course, along with part assembly, but they also offer a number of other fantastic services like CNC, metal sheet fabrication, 3D printing, and even injection molding. Essentially a one-stop service for all your projects. So go to PCBWay.com, upload your project files, and get an instant quote, and thank you to them for sponsoring this video. I also have a couple of these Volca samples, and why I enjoy playing around with them, I actually don't have room for one of these in my current setup here. Now, a place where I would enjoy and actually use them is my Eurorack setup here, but they're just too small. They're not designed to be mounted on a Eurorack setup. Not to mention that the sound level is too low for Eurorack, and they require 9 volts to operate, where Eurorack provides 12, -12, and +5. So I made these. This is a 44 HP wide panel that allows you to mount your Korg Volca onto a Eurorack setup. So small onboard circuit takes the 12 volt from Eurorack and converts that to 9 volt for your Korg Volca, and there's also another circuit to convert the audio out levels to Eurorack levels. Meaning you can slot this straight into your Eurorack setup, sync it in, and use your Korg Volca as you would any other module. Anyway, enough talking. There's a few steps required to mount this onto the panel, so let's do that now. Alright, so we got our Korg Volca sample here. So we need first to remove the case in order to mount this on the mounting panel. So if you're turning it back, you got a number of screws here. You have one here, one here, one here, one here. And if you open the battery compartment, you have 3 more here. So we need to remove those 7 screws altogether. There you go. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 screws. We're going to put them aside because we're going to reuse them later on. So make sure you don't lose any of them. So just be careful here when you remove the cover. There's 2 things soldered. There's the battery wires and the speaker wires. We don't need any of those, so we're going to remove them. The best way I find is to actually open it like this. And we're going to take our trusty soldering iron. There you go. So I've actually designed 3D printed legs to secure this onto the panel this way. So we're going to use the existing screws to secure those. There's 4 holes here, 4 holes here, and they align with the existing holes on the Korg Volca. So what I recommend you do is you mount those holes from underneath first, from the top, sorry, first. So we're going to feed our screw in. So we get our legs mounted on our panel. Next thing, we're going to essentially drop the Volca right here. And there you go. So we just need to secure it from the back. So if we turn this over like that, we're going to secure the legs to these mounting poles. We're going to start with the 2 bottom ones, and I'll explain to you why as I'm doing this. So there's one thing that can happen, and it happens on some and not other Volcas, and the only explanation I think is probably just slight wear and tear, and the fact that the screws that they use are essentially a bit too small to properly go through here and bite. There's a little bit of a recess because you have the PCB to go through on these also. Very often this guy is not a problem, although I think it seems to be on this one. Yeah, it doesn't quite want to bite. This one is always a bit too long, and because we need 8 screws and there was 7 provided, we're essentially missing a screw. I'm guessing if you're interested in putting this module together, you probably are a bit of a thinker and you have a little box of these somewhere. I don't think I've known anybody who's into DIY stuff that doesn't have a little box of spare screws of different sizes. But it's the one thing I can't really provide because I've no way of sourcing them properly. But there you go. And next we need to do a little bit of soldering. So first we need to put the IDC connector in place here, and if you look at the silk screen, this is what I use. You can also use pin headers, but the pin one is essentially here. It's going to be the square one on the board here. Every other pin is round and the pin one is square, and pin one is always this one here. If you have any doubts, just align the notch with the notch on the silk screen facing up and then flip it over like that. And there you go. We're going to clean this with a little bit of a isopropyl alcohol just for cosmetic reasons. You don't really want that sort of gooey flux residue. And next and finally last, we just need to do a little bit of wiring. So we need to, essentially what this is doing, it's taking the 12 volt from here and converting that to 9 volt right here at this pad. So we need to connect this pad to the 9 volt point right here. It's always the same on the Volcas. They're always laid out the same. You have the power here and you have the audio stuff and the sync over there. If you're in doubt, just make sure that just locate the ground one, which is usually this one right here. A +9 is going to be right here. So we're going to send +9 to the +9 in of here. What you need is something roughly the length of your Volca for the 9 volt, because the 9 volt is all the way here. You can also connect to the red connector, which is with the battery compartment, if you're in doubt. So actually, let's use that. The red, it's always marked red on the Volca. It's the top one. We're going to use this guy. There's already solder on there as well. There you go. And here I'm going to put some solder on this guy. In fact, I'm going to do that on every single pad. If you have one of those connectors, the ground is going to be this pin right on the edge. So you have the tip, the ring, and the ground. What you can do is actually just bend the ground over like so, and literally just solder that to the ground pad right here. And it'll save you on existing wire. So we got the ground of our jack connected already, and I'm going to connect this guy. So next we need to connect our ground from this board to this board. Ground is just a common plane for electricity to return to. So if you are in doubt, I'll just show you here. This guy and this guy are connected. I think there's a ground on the MIDI jack as well. So you can take the ground pretty much from anywhere. I advise taking the shortest way possible. I'm going to take the ground from here, the jack, to right here. So we need a tiny, small length of wire. We're going to do that. And connect that to our ground here. Next, we need to take the audio coming out of this jack. Is going to go into this board. Into the audio, into the in pad, gets amplified and comes out right here. So I need to connect the audio out here into the audio in here, and the audio out here into this little jack connector. So we're going to do that, so something similar in length. And again, on those Korg Volcas, the ground is always going to be the top one, and the audio out is always going to be the bottom one. That's tree connection. The last one we need to do is connect this pad, so the audio out goes into. So it's easier if I show you a close-up on this different one. The audio out is going to be on the tip of the connector. So the tip is this single one on its own there. There you go. And you have the two together. The ground is going to be this guy. This is called the ring. We don't actually need that in this case. So we just need the ground and the tip. So this is where your audio comes out, and this is your ground connection. And there you go, 4 small wires, 1 longer one, and that's all you need. That's your Korg Volca ready to be mounted in your Eurorack panel. So let's do that next. So I've provided 8 locations for mounting screws. I recommend that you use all of them. I'm going to power my Eurorack, and if we did everything correctly, there you go. So right now we're not going to hear anything because it's just not connected. So if I connect this to the audio jack out, I mean, it's going to make a sound, but it's not the level it should be at. It should be 5 volt peak to peak. The other thing we can do is actually take an envelope and use that as a clock generator. So and you see the tempo here is going at a different speed, but if we send that to your sync in, now your Korg Volca is in sync with the speed of the envelope. This is a very, very bad way to generate a clock. I don't recommend you do it that way, but it's just to demonstrate here. And there you go, folks, a new life for that Korg Volca you never used. So I have tested these on the Volca FM, the keys, the bass, and the sample. I haven't tested this on the beat and the kick, and I think there's another one I forget now. But they're actually all designed the exact same way, same case, same layout, so they should fit just perfect. So if you want to get one of these, I'll make them available on my Etsy shop as usual, either just as the single PCB panel or as a kit where I'll provide the IDC connector, the jack connector, and the legs, the 3D printed legs. A couple of things you need to source yourself is the wires to connect everything, and also that extra screw that we need to tie everything. You don't technically need it, but it's nice to have. I will also make the Gerbers and the 3D files available on GitHub. I'll put the link in the description of this video. Anyway, folks, that's it for this time. Again, thank you very much for the incredible response to these projects. I've had to restock again for the 4th time since the beginning of the year, which is kind of crazy, so thank you very much. It's been a bit overwhelming since the beginning of this year, if I'm honest, but I think I have the process down, and regularity is coming back on this channel, I promise. Anyway, folks, if you get one of these, let me know, send me a picture. I'd love to see it in your setup. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you soon.